Welcome to Ghost Talk. This episode will feature Robert Peterson talking about out-of-body experiences.
So, first of all, what is astral projection? Astral projection is an experience in which you feel as if you're completely apart from your physical body. In other words, your physical body is just another inanimate object in the room. And you can walk through walls, you can float down the hallways, you can fly. Basically, anything you can do that a ghost would do. And astral projection is also known as out-of-body experience, or OBEs. And if you ask other people if there's a difference, they'll say yes. You know, one is going to the astral plane, and the other is just more like hanging around your house or more the physical plane. But I don't really see a big difference. To me, they're the same thing. So people often ask me, do you believe in ghosts? Well, of course I do. I am a ghost, right? With an out-of-body experience, it's just like you're a ghost. And one thing you gotta understand about me is I have kind of I'm a computer programmer, a very analytical and scientific person. So I get way down into the science. I'll spare you all of that tonight. But I do love Facebook, and I've got that programmer's quirky sense of humor. So I'm gonna be sharing a bunch of memes, Facebook memes with you to keep you entertained so that it isn't just a boring lecture. So here's my first one. This is an example OBE. It's a little girl in bed, and it's like, Mom, Brian is OBEing into my room. Okay, so out-of-body experiences, astral projection, have a very long history, and basically every culture, religion, and belief system has them throughout all of time. And every single belief that we have in the afterlife comes from someone's out-of-body experience, whether it be your own or someone else's. And so we're talking about people who believe in heaven, people who believe in hell, people who have described angels, demons, God, whatever. Almost all of that comes from someone's out-of-body experience. And why not get your own answers rather than reading someone else's experiences? With OBEs, astral projection, you can get your own answers. So you'll find OBEs in astral projection in the Bible. Paul's second letter to the Corinthians, he talks about, I know a Christian man who flew, up as high as the third heaven, and heard secrets that were too secret for lips to repeat or whatever. And he says, whether in the body or out of the body, I don't know, God knows. But the fact that he talks about these out-of-body experiences so matter-of-factly tells me that a Christian person is perfectly acceptable to have these experiences. And also, folklore like witches flying on a broom, a lot of that is from out-of-body experiences where you're weightless or you're having these transcendent things happen. Werewolves, where people transform, from a normal human body schema to the body schema of a wolf. That happens in out-of-body experiences once in a while. And same with vampires. So a lot of our folklore comes from that. And so here's the picture of the first air fryer. And again, he was probably having an out-of-body experience. Okay, so because this is ghost stories, I wanted to share a couple of my own personal stories about astral projection. I became interested in the subject in the fall of November in 1979 when my dad got a book as a present called Journeys Out of the Body by Robert Monroe. And I read it cover to cover in like 2 days. I was so enthralled with it. And that led me to start studying and practicing until I was successful myself. And I practiced for a solid month trying to have an out-of-body experience following Robert Monroe's method, or his technique, and it didn't work for me. I got some immediate run-in with the vibrations, which is a whole other scary story. But after practicing a whole month, I finally came home late from the university. I'm a computer guy, so I was programming on the computer real late. Got home like 11 p.m., ate some lasagna out of the fridge that my mom had made, and I went to bed. And I decided I was too tired to try to have an out-of-body that night. It was just, my brain was fried and I just couldn't do it. So then I went to sleep instead. And this is like the first night I hadn't made an attempt. So I went to sleep, and all night long I kept dreaming the same thing over and over and over. My subconscious was thinking about this computer program I had been working on at the university. I'd been in the University of Minnesota's computer lab all day, and I kept thinking about this thing, and then when in my sleep, I kept rehashing and rehashing and rehashing the same thing, and my subconscious was like talking to itself about this computer program. And finally it's like the computer programmer's worst nightmare, right? After a while, it's like, I just can't stand it anymore. And what happened is I started to just drag my consciousness away from that dream state. And what happened to me is something very unusual. I had multiple levels of awareness, multiple consciousness. Actually, I tried a few things, squirming and twisting and everything, and I just couldn't get out of the body. I was like stuck to it. Finally, I decided to lift my legs and do a backward somersault, and that worked. I went pop, and I floated up above my body. And it's like, wow, this is the first real OBE I'd ever had. And so then I kind of looked up at the ceiling. It's like, wow, it'd be cool if I could go up there. And then whoosh, I was all of a sudden up at the top of my bedroom. And I'm looking down at the bed, and there's my physical body down there. And I'm like, oh my God, what if I fall from this? Looks like, I was pretty far up. Like, what if I fall? Well, then, boom, I fell down into my physical body, and I woke up physically. And it's like, oh my God, this is more real than I could have ever imagined. Okay, so after the first out-of-body experience, I had to face fears, right? Because I started practicing these OBEs. I started hearing voices like hypnagogic images, which are perfectly normal and natural. And it happened to everyone, but normally we're unconscious when they happen. But I started hearing them. Experiencing sleep paralysis, which happens to a lot of people and they're afraid to admit it, where you wake up and you're completely paralyzed, and you start seeing things. But the biggest thing is confronting your fears, because if you can leave your body, like, what else is out there? Are there spirits out there? Are there demons out there? You're afraid, can you get lost? If you go too far from your body, are you going to get lost? What if you go too far, can you die from it? Those kind of things. And also possession. If you're out of your body, can some spirit come into your body? Needless to say, all of these fears or whatever are unfounded, and for the most part you are completely protected, and your subconscious always has control of your physical body and will send you back to that physical body if you have an emergency, like if the telephone rings or somebody comes into your bedroom or something like that. So in my mind, in the dream, I was convinced I was going to die. This vampire was going to kill me. And so what happened is, as nightmares often happen, I woke up and startled awake. And when I startled awake, I was awake in bed, completely awake. I saw a hand reaching for my neck. And I thought, oh my God, I'm really getting attacked, I'm really dying, boom. I saw this claw hand, and I was ejected from my body like toast from a toaster. It was like, boom. And I'm like, oh man, who is attacking my poor body? My poor body is gonna die here, and who's attacking it? I looked around, turned around, and here it is, my own hand that's draped around a pillow. So I had my hand was around the pillow, and I was kind of like this. So when I had opened my eyes, I had seen my own hand. So literally, I had scared myself to death. But then when I saw, oh God, that was just my own hand, then I was fine, and then I went back to my physical body. But it kind of proves a point that I don't think you can be scared to death. I mean, you can be scared into having a heart attack, perhaps, but you can't be scared to death. And then, as I got better with out-of-body experience, I naturally encountered other creatures and people out there. I encountered spirits, and by spirits, what I mean is just like you and I, just ordinary people. I would be out You know, I'd leave my body, I'd go out of the house, I'd go out into the street, and I'd see somebody there, and, oh, hi, how are you doing, or whatever, and it was just a regular, plain old spirit like you and I. Nothing different. They're friendly, you know, or whatever, and you can tell because they can see you, you can engage with them. Then there's also in the body people, like if I went to visit my brother Joe or sister or whatever, I would go to their house and I could see them and they would actually talk to me. It was like I was talking to their subconscious. But they were talking back, but they were also distracted, completely distracted. So they were always like physical people do. They were always busy doing something, doing, and they'd never make eye contact. So I knew that I was, you know, so you can tell whether somebody's in the body, whether you're dealing with a spirit or an in-the-body person by how distracted they seem. And then I met up with these things that I call invisible helpers, and these are, I don't know exactly what they are, but they're helpers that are out there. I've never been able to see them, but they are very helpful, and they have this, I don't know, they must have a non-interference clause because they won't interfere with what's happening in your out-of-body experience unless you actually ask them. So it's like if I'm trying to get somewhere, you know, I'll say, geez, I could use a little help here, and then then I'll hear a disembodied voice say, okay, yeah, here you go, and they'll help me out with traveling to some places and so forth. Some people see extraterrestrials while out of body. I've never seen one. And then there are, of course, angels, or what I think of as biblical, what people in the Bible or other religions describe as angels. And then there are other unsavory creatures that have become known in folklore as demons. But the main thing is if you encounter ugly creatures that people might interpret as demons, they're powerless, basically. They feed off of fear. So the worst thing you can do is be afraid of them. And the best thing you can do is to just dismiss them or go to a higher place or send them off with love. My general basic rule is it's better to be pissed off than afraid. So if you see one of these creatures and you're afraid, turn that anger to you know, screaming, pissed off, and just yell at them and curse at them and tell them where to go and just yell at them and they will flee. Now I want to talk about angels, which is also on my list. This is kind of what most people think of as an angel, what an angel looks like. And I'm here to tell you they don't look like that to me. I've had very few encounters with angels. I've had a couple. To me, they look like this. They look like the filament from a Coleman lantern. So they're bright, they're glowing, they're human sized, they're about, you know, big, they can be bigger. They're often floating, you know, 3-4 feet in the air, but they're usually big and they're bright, light, glowing things. I'll talk a little bit about my encounters with angels, mostly and I think this is where, like, texts like the Bible, people describe angels, and I think a lot of it comes from experiences like mine. What happens is angels are real. They have their own purposes, and those are secret purposes, but they've got their own agenda, and their agendas are very, like, they're very secretive. All I know is I've woken up, you know, a few times, and I think somebody who is an astral traveler, out-of-body traveler, they will take that ability of you to leave your body and they'll take advantage of it. So they'll pull you out of your body, they'll give you a mission, but they'll keep you unconscious. You're not supposed to be conscious because when you become conscious, you mess things up. And so that's what's happened to me several times is I've become conscious and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I'm surrounded by like 3 or 4 of these angels, creatures, and I'm like, and then the angel will say, I'll hear one of the angels say something like, damn it, he's awake again. He's not supposed to be conscious. Put him back under. And then, boom, and then I'll lose consciousness again. So normally we're unconscious when those things happen. And why do they use us for their little secret missions? It's because of our lower vibrations. We're still incarnated on this earth. and we're in a lower plane, if you will. Our vibrations are still pretty low. Our vibrations are really low. So we can get to spirits that are trapped in this earth or whatever, ghosts. We can go to places that these angels with such high vibrations, they can't reach down far enough down to where they can rescue these people. So they use people like me to visit these people and help them out. So I have something I call Chasing God. I've got a chapter in my second book called Chasing God, and this is a couple experiments that I tried to do where I tried to contact God, and I've only made a few attempts really. The first time I tried to contact God, I left my body and I said, oh God, I want to feel your presence, whatever. And I felt this energy bolt, like I was hit by lightning, literally. And it was such an incredible amount of power that it just like blasted me like a bolt of lightning. And I just crumbled to the ground, and that was it. It was like too much energy. The second time I tried to contact God, I was like, I want to go where God is or something. I want to see God, or I forget what the wording was. But instantly I found myself out in outer space, and there wasn't a planet or a star anywhere near me. I could see stars way off in the distance, but I was like, I must have been millions of light years away from anywhere, from Earth. And I had no idea where I was, but still, I still managed to wake up back in my body. Another time I tried to contact God, again, I left my body and I was still in my bedroom, and I did like a little prayer of I want to meet God or something like that. And I noticed that there was a spider on my ceiling, and it was crawling, and I thought, well, this is odd. And pretty soon a second spider joined them, and then eventually the whole ceiling was like covered with spiders. And it was like facing a terrible fear. And it's like, it was a lesson. I was being given a lesson. It was probably from a spirit guide or something like that, but I was being given a lesson, and that lesson was to love everything, including spiders. I knew that I don't like spiders, right? They're repulsive to me. But I understood, I had an understanding at that time that before I could actually get close to God, I had to accept and love all his creatures, including spiders. And it's like, I don't think I'm quite ready for that. Not spiders. But I knew it was a lesson, and that's another purpose of astral projection, is you can get spiritual lessons like that. So why do astral projection? First of all, eliminates your fear of death, right? If you can exist apart from your physical body, you don't have to be afraid to die, because that's just like another out-of-body experience. Your body's just another thing in the room, right? And you can visit the afterlife. You can say last goodbyes. I've seen my dad after he died, and I was still in college at the time, but he came to me after he had died, and I was in an out-of-body experience, and we exchanged some words, and it was very touching. And again, this is something that a lot of people, well, not a ton, but there have probably been at least a dozen or more people, books, out-of-body astral projection books, that have talked about meeting their dead spouses, or mother or father, or son, sons, daughters, that kind of thing, people who have crossed over in an out-of-body experience to say their last goodbyes. And it's a very powerful experience. So takeaways. First of all, life is a school. These are things that I've learned through my astral projections. You're not your physical body. Death is a friend, and it's nothing to fear. It's just, I think was it Chief Seattle who said that it's just walking from one doorway to another, or something like that. Also, the color of your skin is meaningless. It's your body. You are not your body, so it doesn't matter if someone is black, white, red, anything, or even male, female, because when you leave your body, you transcend all of those preconceived human notions, and you're just spirit at that point. Also, privacy is an illusion. You may think you're private, but guess what? We're always surrounded by spirits. Sherry would attest to that. And physical objects lose their glitter, because sooner or later you realize through out of body that you're going to have to leave your physical things behind someday. So it's like, okay, you've got this thing that you hold on to or that you really love. You can't take that with you into the afterlife. You can maybe create one of your own, a duplicate in the out of body world, but it's not the same thing. So physical objects lose their glitter. So there are downsides, right? The downside is your belief system may be thrown into chaos because you start having these out-of-body experiences, and boom, it kind of challenges everything. You may, at least in my case, I found myself an outcast from both science and religion. I'm a very scientific guy. I'm a computer programmer, and I believe in science. And but nothing in my scientific upbringing had prepared me for out-of-body experience or what you see there. And same thing about religion. I mean, none of my religious, I was raised Catholic, and none of my religious beliefs had prepared me for out-of-body experiences, nor did they even accept that. I mean, most Christians, if you talk about out-of-body experience, most Christians would say that, it's a trick of the devil and it's sinful and all of this. Well, I've got 43 years of experience that it's not, and I can argue whatever, but anyway, you can find yourself at odds with both science and religion, so you find yourself as kind of a social outcast. And it can be scary. You may end up confronting your deepest fears. Your fear of the unknown is a big one because you don't know what's out there. Fear of getting lost, all the things that I talked about before. And once you start having OBEs, it becomes harder to relate to ordinary people because it's like, did you see if the Jets won the football game? Well, what does it matter? Because, eventually you're out of body and whatever, and next year the Jets will be a different team, and, things become that you used to find meaningful have become meaningless because you've seen this greater reality. So it's harder to relate to ordinary people who don't have these things. And then, so congratulations, you're now a weirdo. So I can claim that proudly, I'm a weirdo. But there's an upside. The upside is, you can explore. There's an unparalleled sense of freedom. The thrill of flying. You can, a lot of times when I leave my body, I just spend a few minutes just doing these wild zooms into the air, like my dog gets the zoomies or whatever, runs around the yard like this. I do that out of body. And then it's like, okay, now I got that out of my system, I got to do something serious, okay? But you can't resist sometimes. So it's exploring and finding your own answers. It's the last goodbyes. And my most important message to you is always, experience always, always, always trumps faith. Faith is the belief in someone else's experience. Experience is your own experience, right? So experience always trumps faith. Presentation. At this point, I'll take questions, and my website is robertpeterson.org.
Is that I was in a motorcycle accident, and I was in a coma for about a month afterwards. And when I was in the coma, I had a very intense spiritual experience over a very long period of time. And you touched on many of the things that I had experienced in there. I was very lucid in my state. I couldn't choose where I was, but no, there was no certain outcome. It was like the stage was set, and I was interacting in this beautiful place where I learned so many things about life and about spirituality and people. One of the things you mentioned in your presentation about us being spirit, not being a boy or a girl or a father, that is so true for me. That was one of the first lessons I learned there, is that no, your infinite spirit is your true identity, and that's very consistent with what you had to share. And I found your presentation extremely interesting, and I've never had an out-of-body experience besides having that near-death experience. Most of my recollections and most of my pursuit has been on the spiritual level, because I was a zero on the spirituality scale. I was a biker. I was an outlaw biker. And I'll show you my tattoos. and I'm also an engineer, a programmer. And so I understand, but I've never had that. But most of my experience has been a spiritual one.
it's been fun stuff, but I have yet to find something that's as reach out and grab you as I.
Thank you for joining us this evening. This is your ghost host, Paul Rusnak, and we thank Robert Peterson for his presentation. Good night now.